You've probably asked yourself this question before: how the hell do I make good design? Well, lucky for you, there's no really right and wrong. It's mostly about what's weak and strong, meaning to say pretty much everything can work if you do it well. That's why we have these principles of design. You'll find that there's like 5 principles of design, 3 or 12, but today we're going to talk about the 7 principles of design. Why principles, you might ask? Well, unlike art, which is very abstract, design has to have a purpose. You can check out our other video where we talk about some important things that you can do before you submit your work. You can check out our other video, how to see like a designer, where I talked a bit about having a design that makes sense and knowing what to prioritize in your design hierarchy. The formula is about guiding the viewer in that journey to understand that message and a flow that is easy to follow. And this flow is made out of a couple of things. In this case, this video's case, there's 7 things. So let's move on. So number 1 is emphasis. So let's say you're designing something like a poster. Just ask yourself, there has to be a star to that poster, right? A center of focus, if you will. Usually it's the product or the event that you want to promote. If it's a band, then you might want to make the band's name really big, or you might even want to make the name normal size, but the band's photos are really big. Some people might recognize faces more than names. You have to be able to decide which one of those you can emphasize on. They're both correct, but it's up to you to know which one suits your audience the most. Like which element gives the audience the most data. So when you're emphasizing on something, it's not just about the subject matter, like the name of the band or the photo of the band. You can also manipulate your results with different colors, different sizes, different font weights. You know, there's a lot of ways to emphasize something. So number 2, balance and alignment. I've talked about this a bit in another video, how to see like a designer. But let me get a bit more in depth in this one. Every element has a place in your design, and you have to align it based on the flow that's best to consume it in. Certain alignments can even make it look cleaner. Like I've told you about alignment in terms of text, justify left, middle and right. But when it comes to aligning elements, objects and pictures or whatever, that's not text, you have a bit more freedom to play around. But for the sake of keeping it simple, try to split it into 2 categories, symmetrical and asymmetrical. While symmetry is very pleasing to the eye, it can also get pretty boring. And it's the opposite for asymmetrical design. It's easy for it to look bad if you don't do it well. But if you can execute it properly, it looks really good. You've heard someone say, hey, this design pops. Usually that's because of contrast. Contrast creates a space as well as a difference between the elements of your design. Take a design with a busy background, for example. If you put text on it, you wouldn't be able to see it or read it. So usually the solution to this is to make the background less busy, adding more harmonious elements to the background, which is basically another way of saying it's putting a black overlay on it or a gradient. But it creates this separation between the background and the text in front of it, and that's one of the ways you can solve a problem with contrast. It also works in typography, like some people like to have everything in bold. Like, you know, that defeats the purpose of making it bold, right? So you have to use a thinner weight to make the bold title stand out. Contrast. So number 4 is repetition. So when you design, you're bound to have more than one of the same element, like the same colors here and there, the same shapes here and there. Repeating the same elements or the same set of elements creates a pattern that's pleasing to humans. Say you have the Power Rangers. Like there's this one episode where they had all the Red Rangers in one frame, and you have to admit that that looks way pleasing compared to this really colorful shot of the Power Rangers. I'm not saying like the second shot sucks, but the first one is more harmonious. Like repetition does that. But if you look at noise, it's kind of like random and it feels kind of chaotic, right? Now we're almost done with our list. So before we get to the end of the video, I just want to remind you to give our channel a like and subscribe. It's the right thing to do. So principle number 5 would be proportions. Like whereas hierarchy is about like sequence and a bit more freedom to dictate what is more important, proportions is just about size and weight. Like thickness of lines, bold fonts, like these things make your design look heavy. And whether your design looks heavy or light can affect the audience perception of your design. So regardless of how you do your proportions, you have to make sure that you're focusing on the right thing. Like if I were doing a painting, I would make the main subject of the painting the biggest, and maybe the people in the foreground was not important to just remain small in the background. Yeah, and when all of these things are applied in one design, when you combine them, you'll get movement. Now, when you look at things from big to small or vice versa, your brain tries to sense a pattern, it tries to like sense a flow in your design. And usually like something from big to small, weak or strong, like something that plays around with these attributes, you would notice movement in the design. Like say this big circle and this small circle, well, if you align it properly, you can say that this big circle is the starting point and the small circle makes it look like it's something in the distance. So you're kind of seeing the circles meant to move there in a straight line, and you can get a sense of direction here. It's especially effective with curves. You can see it in poster designs, you can see it in character designs. Like movement keeps your artwork dynamic and it guides the audience's eyes when they look at your design. And finally, the 7th principle is something that you hear a lot of people saying, but they probably don't know what it means: white space. So white space is the parts of your design that are not there. Take a look at this heading and this sentence. So you see the area around here, this part in the middle here, the corners, all this space, that's white space. So sometimes you don't have to make something bigger just to pull attention towards it. You can use white space and make it look like it's the only thing there, it's all alone, and you'll still get it to be the focus of attention. That works. Usually for like classy kind of designs, they tend to use more white space. Even stuff that's meant to be scary, they try to use white space to emphasize on something. There's just something about white space that's just... Alright, so those are the 7 principles of design. Now you just need to know how to use them together. Don't worry about making mistakes. There's no right and wrong when you're doing design. There's only weak and strong. Navigate yourself through that. And if you haven't, please do give our channel a like and subscribe. It's the right thing to do. I'll see you guys in the next one.